everybody. I hope everybody's having a great day, and I'm staying inside for New Year's because due to the coronavirus pandemic and lockdowns, it is wise to stay home, and I'm just abiding the laws and restrictions that have been placed. However, today's topic is Russia. Breaking news. Bellingcat released information of the FSB officers' travel, and overall there is 566 trips that were taken. The reason it was released today, and Christo said that he's going to release it before the end of the year. And I'll tell you why the date December 31st. Not where propaganda is to ruin Putin's New Year, because tomorrow the new foreign agent law comes into effect in Russia. Anybody who ever helped Bellingcat and their Russian nationals or dealt with any foreign services will be charged under that act and has severe prison terms. Therefore, today was the only day they could release it without having ramifications, because clearly, if you do something like that, Kremlin will retaliate and find ways who actually helped to dealt with them. So therefore, they'll follow the Foreign Agent Act immediately starting January 1st. So what is in that released information? I'll leave the link from my video in regards to information that was released. However, I refuse to name the names of the officers in my video. I still to this day do not exactly agree with releasing names of intelligence FSB officers. Even though I don't support Kremlin or Russian regime, personally I don't want to do that. I'll leave the link if anybody wants to read it, because it is clearly already in open source. Therefore, I will be releasing that. If anybody wants to read the whole report by Bellingcat, they're more than welcome to. The highlights that I'll provide: number one, a lot of troops were taken to Grozny, Chechnya, which is Kadyrov's territory. And clearly there's two conundrums about that I personally have. If Navalny says, and it's a personal group that were specifically involved in pure poisonings and chemical weapons, well, there's nobody that died high-ranking suspicious in Chechnya on their unresolved deaths in few years. So clearly this is not it. So at best, I will say that even though I respect Bellingcat and I respect Christo's work, and I think he does an amazing job, and I always applauded how hard he works. He's a Bulgarian, and how amazing the work is. Bellingcat is out of UK. They get grants for their work, etc. So what my saying is, I do believe those officers do work for FSB. I have no doubt about that. However, at the same time, I do not believe all of them involved in chemical warfare and the murder squad, as they put it. I think a lot of them are involved in intelligence gathering, possibly tracking terrorists, because Islamic terrorism is a factor even in Russia and everything like that. So they could be tracking all that and radicals. So I don't believe that squad is specifically done for Navalny. And also, compared to other publications, Navalny supported videos and everything like that, people are peddling, stating that the squad and the whole department was created to track Navalny and poison him. Well, Navalny is not that important, for one. For two, they're not going to be doing it for years and years. That means they would be so inefficient then and tracking him around, but yet finally just poison him now and we're unsuccessful again. I do believe that he was poisoned, but I still have a lot of questions who and where, because like I said, he has a lot of enemies, and I always say that. Because the videos he does, especially like I mentioned before, going after doctors, for example, and what they own. Well, there's a lot of rich doctors in the West. Is he like filming every one of them and everything like that, and they went to medical school? So those doctors are not politicians. So clearly, he's going after anyone who has funds. Yet, as I pointed out, the investigations have been commenced against him for fraud, which again, it's allegations. With Russia, I'm not saying it's true or not. I had questions pertaining his kids' education in Stanford international student fees if he claims he's just one average Russian. Average Russian cannot afford a vacation to America, never mind anything of the above, and having lavish apartments in America. Stanford is a very expensive school. Anyway, so outside of that, what else is interesting? Overall, Bellingcat released 12 names of an officer. 10 they identified what they did, 2 are not identified what they did, so released the names though. What is also interesting is the trajectory of trips. All those trips, not all of them, have to do with Navalny. Navalny did not take that many trips. So as much as Navalny wants attention for himself, it's not all about Navalny. There's also some trips that are classified by Bellingcat himself, because Christo said he's working on a special investigation pertaining to this, and he releases them, it will jeopardize his investigation. So clearly there's more information coming, and it would be interesting to see what those 2 trips are, what coloration it is, because like I said, I have huge respect for Bellingcat and what they do, but at the same time, as any information arrives, you always have to have your own analysis, you have to have your viewpoint, everything you still have to analyze. You cannot take every information and 100% say that the person is correct, because a lot of times there are facts and there's also a lot of opinions and interpretations. So the facts are the troops taken. Yes, that's 100% true. The team exists. Yes. But what they do as far as being a killer squad, I don't believe specifically that, and this is a whole different scenario within itself. Additionally, what else is on that release? There's some interesting trajectory of how the troops were taken, obviously. And obviously, Russia probably had reasons behind it because, like I said, Bellingcat released that, but not all information. There's 2 trips that are classified. However, you would have to correlate every event and news to find some. For example, there's some interesting facts that some of those trips, even though they weren't correlated, involved, and this is just what I found in open source this morning, is that some of them had close proximity of some Russian oligarchs dying, because recently there are a wave of oligarchs who were died with unexplained deaths between the age of 50 and 60. So that could be, but at the same time, given how Russia operates and how wild 90s were and how they made their fortunes, because in Russia, to make that fortune, you had to be taking, stealing, colluding, and other ways, because you cannot be honestly rich in Russia. And this is where, well, you could during Tsarist times, which people owned gubernias and everything like that, but I'm saying anything after the Soviet Union happened in 1917 after the revolution, and anything after the collapse of Soviet Union, both of those factors. So given all that, they all have a lot of enemies, they all colluded and stole, so accusing Kremlin that they 100% didn't know. Did Kremlin and intelligence surveil certain type of oligarchs? I'm sure they do. I'm sure there's a lot of different dealings involved, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's certain type of intelligence operations that are happening 24/7. So some of those trips could coincide with that, because like I said, there's a lot of unexplained deaths. There's also a high number, well, not a high number, but quite a few generals who died in the past 2 years in Russia. I mean, some were killed in Syria, obviously one. That was a tragedy. There's also a couple who died and they seem to be healthy and died in their 50s, so that's still kind of questionable. But given the life of an army general and deployments and everything, their health could suffer. There also could be PTSD involved. There could be a lot of factors, because to this day, even though the West admits there's a lot of PTSD, in Russia it is frowned upon to speak about anything like that, so it is very hidden too. So as much as I would love to say that, yes, the Kremlin did all of that, all sensationalism, no. There's those factors that can come into play, and that's why further analysis is needed. And I'm sure Bellingcat will release more information. But at the same time, what I believe, and it's like in anything, I respect what people do. And again, I keep saying Christo does amazing work. But when you work in one specific field and you do the same investigative stuff, sometimes you start seeing a picture how you want to see it, because you're looking specifically for intelligence. But there could be other mitigating factors like PTSD and everything else. Even though, like I said, I admire the work. So this is why I always keep saying that, because I don't want anybody to think that I'm doubting his work, or I'm not. I'm just giving multiple scenarios. That's all I'm doing. So this is what given that came out today. And also, Navalny was offered an asylum in Germany. There's a discussion with Bundestag, and apparently there's 2 now deputies that are offering Navalny asylum, because otherwise he will be in danger returning to Russia. However, then the question ponders, Navalny only makes funds through donations, and through his work he could not do politics from overseas, because all those spots are taken. The foreign fighters and everybody who defected from Russia to the West, they actually already, those spots are taken working against the Kremlin from the West. And lastly, additionally, those people actually had some proprietary information to share with the West when they defected. So in case of Navalny, he doesn't have anything proprietary per se, because, you know, the story is, yes, he's fighting corruption, doing all those videos, but at the end of the day, he does not know any state secrets or holds any type of value of that nature. And also, if he takes asylum, his donations will drop in Russia, because he'll automatically be considered having ties to foreign country immediately, because having a foreign citizenship that is not Russian immediately will put him in that category, and the distrust will grow even further, and there could be easily propaganda campaign done within 2 seconds saying that he's not a Russian patriot, and a lot of other factors. But at the same time, if his life is in danger in Russia, and this is a very valid point too, do German taxpayers want to be on the hook for his security for the next 20 years? Because as we all know, in the case of Litvinenko, for example, where he was poisoned with polonium and died a horrible death on UK soil, what stops Russia from doing something in Germany? Germany already accused the Russian and Chechen operatives just recently about the killing in the park that happened of a former Georgian national in a broad daylight in Germany. So how is it Navalny is more safe in Germany per se? If that's, if he does have a clear target on his back and providing him security, and I don't think he will actually go in exile in full hiding and have new identity, because then his work is done, and at 40 something years old, what is he gonna truly do? Look at the case of Skripals and everything else too. So I mean, the argument about him not being safe in Russia, I don't think he's super safe, for example, in Germany, and why should German taxpayers be on a hook for his security detail for the rest of his life too? That's a question to ask. Because in my opinion, he was not, and this is the whole thing, he was not an intelligence officer. He was not a double agent providing information for the West. There's nothing proprietary about him. And obviously he's a human being and nobody deserves to die or be poisoned. But I'm looking perfectly from pragmatic standpoint only. I'm looking at facts, cost, and everything like that. Because in reality of life, if you take emotional factor out of all of this, intelligence is a game of intelligence, and if you have emotions attached to it, you're not going to be very good intelligence officers, let's put it this way. And this is just my opinion, even though I admire the works that intelligence people do, because I think they're brave, I think they're talented, I think they're amazing for what they do, they sacrifice a lot and everything else, and I especially admire the work of FBI and CIA and US, because I think they're amazing, fantastic organizations overall. So what does everybody think? What does everybody think about the information? What do they think? Like I said, I'll leave the link for Bellingcat at the bottom if you would like to read everything that actually was provided this morning. I hope everybody has a wonderful new year. I hope everybody's staying safe and healthy, and I wish everybody the best, and I'll see everybody in the new year. Bye for now.